Jessica Alba burned a whole lot of people, quite literally. She had a sunscreen product with her name on it, and most unfortunately, a whole lot of people used it and then posted pictures of themselves with blisters all over themselves and horrible sunburns, and just awful things happened. And so she apologized via Twitter and her website, but it's kind of like too little too late. What a horrible debacle. I mean, what could she have done about that? Who knows? So I have
make a better product.
Oh, she could have made a better product, right? Tested it or something. The other thing that I have this week that really I think is awful is the hashtag disarm the iPhone, which has to do with getting rid of the gun icon that is in the emojis on the iPhone. And it got a very tepid response. And, the video about it has been watched 35,000 times and made fun of by right-wing people. And, I mean, regardless of the response, it's a conversation that has to be had. People have to be talking about this. And the fact that nobody wants to made me sad.
Well, here's another thing that will make you sad, BL. We have talked about in a previous podcast, we talked about the Hitchbot, which is the Canadian project of a robot traveling the country and traveling the world and tweeting its travels. Well, Hitchbot is in the news again for a very sad story. This is from Yahoo Digest. It was found in Philadelphia. The Hitchbot was found in Philadelphia with its arms ripped off, its skull and brain nowhere in sight. Their co-creators, Farouk, I think, Zeller. I'm sorry
I think that's how you say it. Yeah.
And David Smith have been overwhelmed with support, though. So they're considering rebuilding it. But I mean, seriously, who rips apart a Canadian robot? It's got to be the most polite robot imaginable, Philadelphians, apparently.
So, thank you, Scott. Scott Scowcroft says, love your sense of humor, B.L. Ochman. The show must go on. Yeah, we figure it has to. We had all kinds of problems getting started, but here we are. And Ray Hills is asking, was her sunscreen a recipe handed down in her family? She didn't mention that, but I can just imagine that it might have been, and that's really rather sad. So the other bad news that I have this week is really, kind of disgusting, and in view of some of the other news that's been going on around it that we're not going to talk about. The Twitter debacle of the week, Vanderbilt football team's rape tweet. They actually published something that said, "We are relentless, tough, and intelligent," followed by a photo with the slogan, "We don't need your permission." They deleted it, but of course what goes online stays online, and in this case it was Sports Illustrated's Stephanie Haberman who captured an image of the tweet, and making it worse. In January, 2 Vanderbilt football players, Brandon Vandenberg and Corey Beatty, were convicted in the 2013 rape of an unconscious woman at a dorm, and 2 other former players were involved, and photos of the assault recovered from a cell phone were used as evidence in the case. There was a mistrial, now there's a retrial. You just don't do that. So, of course, they apologized, and, Stephanie Haberman said, "Gone but never forgotten." And they said, "We apologize for today's tweet. It's not a comment about sexual assault." Really, what was it about? Sex without permission is always wrong and never accepted. Sex assault is not acceptable at Vanderbilt University. Well, excuse me, neither are tweets like that.
Yeah, that's pretty awful. It's an absolutely serious problem. On the plus side of it, this is still, a grim story, but it's I put it in best because it's attempting to solve a problem. There's some students that are trying to develop a nail polish that can detect date rape drugs. So this is from IFL Science Story by Stephen Luntz. There's 4 undergraduate students at North Carolina State University that are attempting to, as a project, develop a nail polish that will reveal the presence of date rape drugs such as Refidol, I think is how it's pronounced, and GBH by changing color in their presence. So a woman could actually sort of stir her drink with her fingernail in it and check her fingernail, see if it changes color. They're calling it undercover colors. There have been attempts to do something like this in the past. Drink Safe Technologies have distributed tens of millions of coasters that change colors if a drop of the drink containing those drugs falls on it, but apparently it takes a longer time than expected to change color. It's less discreet, obviously, than nail polish would be. This is still a project. It's not ready for, it doesn't appear to be ready for prime time yet, but very interesting nonetheless, and a fascinating use of communications technologies essentially to solve a real world problem, but also sad commentary on the state of the world.
Well, I mean, I'm glad they're working on it, and it sounds like something that that could be done. I mean, it certainly sounds like something that is achievable. So Ray Hill says, "Poor Hitchbot traveled across Canada and Europe only to meet its demise in the city of brotherly love." You know, that's what it's supposed to be called. So I believe you have one more bit of bad news, and then we can go on to a bunch of good news because we got a lot of that.
Yeah. So there's been a video going around, has gained quite a lot of views recently, and it's I don't know whether it goes in bad. They put it in bad, but it could go in good because it's kind of cool. Telsa's robotic snake car charger. So this is from a BBC, where I found the video on the BBC site. After Telsa revealed the video of the charger in action, Elon Musk joked on Twitter that it does seem kind of wrong because the way it moves, it's really sort of creepy. It snakes around and then finds the charger port, whatever, and starts charging. So a lot of people are commenting on how creepy this is, and it kind of looks like the aliens in War of the Worlds movie with Tom Cruise.
Just who you want in your car, right?
Yeah, I can see why people will think it's creepy, but kind of cool too.
So on to better news. I've been looking at campaigns using emoji, and those range from the sublime to the absurd. But one that kind of cool, the World Wildlife Foundation has a set of 17 Twitter emojis with 17 endangered species, and you use them, and then you get the option to donate to World Wildlife Foundation to save them. You get them on Twitter desktop. I don't believe you can get them in mobile by pressing Alt-Command-T and then selecting the nature section of the drop-down that appears. Oh, actually, yeah, it is on mobile in the emoji tab. And so given that 4 in 5 18 to 65-year-olds use emojis on a regular basis, and 72% of 18 to 25-year-olds find it easier to express emotion through emojis, it's a great idea. But then there was the ridiculous, and I don't know how I missed this, but I did. Chevy did an all-emoji press release. And that would have probably been cool if they also had a translation that they published with it, but they waited 2 days to publish the translation, and by that time several stories with quite hilarious, completely wrong translations had run. And it really, I mean, it was absurd. So Jalopnik ran one that was really very funny. And, basically what happened was that news of a new car is not so compelling that people are going to wait 2 days to find out what the hell you said. And as Amy X. Wang noted in Slate, Chevy just tried way too hard to be cool. So when you try that hard, it really just doesn't work. And so, I mean, you have no idea. One of the translations said you have no idea who the last person was that sat in your airline seat. Bring hand sanitizer. That was one of the translations of the press release. And the other one that said, there were 3 globes in there. So the one of the translations said the 2016 Chevy Cruze weighs as much as 3 Earths. Okay.
Well, I went and saw the Minions movie on the opening weekend that it was released, and as I'm sitting in the theater, I'm like, well, I got a tweet about seeing the Minions movie, and I needed an emoji for it. There's got to be a Minions emojis, right? I looked and I looked and I looked, and there wasn't. I can't believe it. It's like that seems like a no-brainer. Maybe I missed them, but they seems tailor-made. That's a brand tailor-made for emojis.
Well, the emojis are also pretty well hidden. I mean, that you have to press 3 keys to get to them is a little silly too. But you know, there might be a tab that would be easier. But anyway, the other really weird thing that I saw this week was Old Spice has got this weird Instagram campaign. And, you know, back when they had, what's his name on the horse going, I'm on a horse, talking about Old Spice, and everybody said, oh, the greatest campaign since sliced bread. And I said, does that really sell Old Spice? Does, you know, I mean, to me, that campaign was one that just missed the whole point because they didn't expand it to other mediums. So I'm not convinced that these things sell anything, but they're fun to play with. So working with Whedon and Kennedy, plus Kennedy, who's such a great agency, they have this wild, wacky, choose-your-own-adventure social experience on Instagram, and the main account leads to other accounts specially created to tell the story, and each image contains tags that let you select the next occurrence in the story. So clicking on one, you know, it's like what you thought you could do when you were a little kid, you wished you could do with TV. And clicking on one tag takes you one way and another tag takes you another, and somehow this relates to Old Spice, I'm not quite sure. And you know, it's fun. And the story was from Steve Hall, and I just don't believe that it sells any products, but I had fun playing.
I got another viral video that's been making the rounds, and it's absolutely wonderful. So this is from a BuzzFeed story by Kimberly Dadds. 1,000 Italian musicians playing "Learning to Fly" or "Learn to Fly" by the Foo Fighters, in order to get the Foo Fighters band to come and play in Cesena, Italy. It's a small town in Italy. So they had organized these 1,000 Italian musicians, groups of drummers, groups of guitarists, groups of bass players, groups of singers. They got a lot of donated talent. They did some crowdfunding. They did auditions, and they got a very talented conductor to orchestrate the whole thing. And some people donated their video talent. They found a place to record it, and they recorded 1,000 musicians playing "Learn to Fly" by the Foo Fighters, and it is absolutely wonderful. It is just joyous watching them all play, because they're clearly having a wonderful time. They want their favorite band to come and play in Cesena, Italy, and it worked. It worked.
That's great. It worked.
You know, the Foo Fighters saw the video. It's like had 17 million views or something so far. Ridiculous. The Foo Fighters saw the video. Dave Grohl, the guitarist in the lead guy for the Foo Fighters, responded on their Facebook page in Italian, saying he was overwhelmed. He thought it was so fantastic, and yes, they are going to come and play in Cesena, Italy. So just fantastic story all around.
Getting 1,000 of any group together to do anything is an incredible accomplishment, you know. I mean, especially to play together. I mean, that's just amazing. What a wonderful thing they did. The other wonderful video this week was Arby's goodbye to Jon Stewart, and it was to the tune of "Thank you for being a friend," because Arby's, for whatever reason, I don't know why Jon Stewart chose Arby's to make fun of as often as he did, but he talked about how awful the food was. So they sang to the tune of "Thank you for being a friend," and you know, so we think it was okay. I mean, the whole goodbye to Jon Stewart, I don't know about you, but I was crying by the end of it, and it was a really heartfelt, sweet, poignant, and fun kind of goodbye. You know, it wasn't some over-the-top crazy thing that a lot of other people have tried doing. It was Jon Stewart being Jon Stewart. And what the heck are we going to do now from 11 to 11:30 at night?
Yeah, he will be missed. It's sad that he's signing off, but he's left a lot of talent in his wake. So we've got Stephen Colbert, we've got John Oliver, we've got a host of others that were influenced by him or got their start with him. So it's at least we've got that.
I hope that Colbert is not going to go mainstream on us. We'll see what happens, you know. But another thing that I came across this week that I thought was pretty impressive is called Project Urok, which is pronounced U-R-O-K. And the aim of it is to destigmatize mental health issues for young people, and particularly for teenagers. And the story I found it actually on Twitter, and it's a nonprofit organization whose mission is to create funny, meaningful videos for teenagers struggling with mental health issues. And they're made by people who've been there before. And it's founded by Jenny Jaffe of College Humor. And it was launched in April of 2015, and it already has features with a variety of honest, funny, relatable videos from young adults. And it ultimately strives to be an interactive, all-encompassing source for teen mental health resources. And it encourages users to upload their own videos and share their experiences. And it has videos from Perez Hilton, who talks about suffering from depression, from the comedian Sue Smith, who talks candidly about OCD and depression in her childhood and how it manifests itself today. And interestingly, she was named one of the top 10 funniest women in New York City by Time Out, and she's also known for a lot of appearances on VH1 and UCB1 Comedy Network. And then Mara Wilson, a former New York City-based writer, performer, storyteller, and host of the weekly show What Are You Afraid Of, also has a video about dealing with depression. And the goal is to make this something that you talk about, not something that you hide, because unfortunately, this is a really serious problem among teens. So, you know, good for them. This is a great resource.
That's fantastic. This is not nearly as earth-shattering, but it's fantastic in its own way. Twitter is trying out a dedicated news tab on their mobile app. This is from Engadget's Roberto Baldwin wrote the story. So we've discussed in the past how Twitter is positioning itself more prominently as a go-to news source. I mean, it already is, but they're doing even more efforts to promote that fact. They did the homepage redesign that features current tweets. They have the curator tool for publishers. They've got Project Lightning. They've got the deal with Google to incorporate tweets into search. And now they're testing this dedicated news tab in the mobile app. Who knows if it's gonna be permanent, but it is another indication of their intentions of positioning the tool Twitter as that go-to source of news. The featured news tab will have trending news items. It sits in the middle of the app's bottom row. When you tap on it, it shows what's currently happening in the world. News stories feature an image, the text, link to the news source, and a list of tweets from other publishers and Twitter users about that particular news item. So interesting development there.
I think what they've been doing has been quite innovative recently, even though the stock is tanking. I think the stock will be back. You know, I'm not giving up on Twitter. Twitter for me is still a really tremendous resource. And there's a funny comment here from Scott Scowcroft. He says, "Never fear, Jon Stewart will be back." In some way, I'm sure, because he made a film already this past year, and you know, he was just going out for a drink. Something that was fun that happened this week that, you know, talk about newsjacking. Already Cecil the Lion is a Beanie Baby. And Thai Incorporated will be selling them at the end of September, and 100% of the proceeds go to the Wildlife Conservation Research Unit. That's the organization that was studying Cecil in his home in Zimbabwe's national park since 2008. And Jimmy Kimmel's reaction to the killing of Cecil urged people to donate to that organization. Already $1 million has been donated toward lion welfare. So now I'd like to see the same amount of money donated towards human welfare.
Yeah. Good move on the Beanie Babies one, the Beanie Baby or Beanie Lion, as it were.
It's Beanie Lion, yeah.
Very smart move, and you know, donating the proceeds is, I mean, it's just a smart brand move to do that. Are we on to shiny new stuff?
Yes, Ray Hills just noted the slogan at Project You Are Okay. It says, no matter what you're going through, you're not alone. That's indeed the point, and I think that's really admirable. Yeah, we're on to shiny new stuff. And what do you got?
Twitter again. So Twitter has a new feature, Twitter Events. It's a new tool to target live events. You can find events through it, get basic demographics and technographics about the people who are paying attention to those events on Twitter. It's based on historical data. So this Sunday is the Hall of Fame game for the NFL, and we Minnesota Vikings have a guy going into the Hall of Fame from our past, and so I checked that out, and you can see the types of tweets that people, examples of popular tweets from the last year's Hall of Fame game ceremony events, and then obviously you can easily target these events with advertising. So you could do the target events in the past, but you had to do it manually. It sort of does it algorithmically, makes it a lot easier. It's just a surprise that it took so long for Twitter to get this in place, because it had, in addition to it being a go-to source for breaking news, and it is also a go-to source for events. So.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if that's going to show up now in the same way that recent tweets do in Google search, because what I see is that, your most recent tweets come up in a carousel. And so I wonder if the live streaming of events in this way is going to also come up in that Google search in real time in the carousel. If they can pull that off.
That's a good point. I imagine that would be the case. The question here specifically is, are the advertising tweets going to show up that way too?
Yeah, that is a good question, and I guess that remains to be seen. But if they don't start to cater to advertisers in some way, they're going to have some bigger problems than they have now, if you ask me. So I found a very cool app this week. It's called Be My Eyes, and it connects blind people by video with volunteer helpers all over the world. So if somebody says, can somebody help me to get to wherever, or I'm lost, can somebody come and find me, or I need help doing X, Y, or Z, there are volunteer helpers who will, via video, come and talk to or actually go to the blind person. What a terrific idea.
That's a great idea. That's amazing.
And it works, I mean, we all have these amazing devices in our pockets all the time. I actually left home this morning without my phone. Oh my God, it's like being a freaking pioneer. I couldn't find my friends. You don't know where you are without your phone. Oh my God. And of course, we don't know anybody's phone number anymore or email, because it's all on the phone. I mean, that's certainly something we've lost. I do know my family phone numbers, but that's about it. That's scary. It's really scary. So, that brings us to, we won an award this week, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was really kind of nice. We were in such great company. We were named one of the top 4 social media news channels on YouTube by a site called Devumi. I wish their grammar was a little better and their facts were a little straighter, but it's still nice to be named in the same company that they put us in. That was very sweet.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Well, so thanks for that. Daily numbers?
Yes, go ahead.
All right. Yeah. So why men get retweeted more than women? This is from an Atlantic article by Jessica Bennett. It reports on Allison Schaap. She's a doctoral student in linguistics at NYU, and she wanted to study gender differences in hashtag use. So she pulled together a library of tweets that included 1,633 hashtags, divided them into traditional tags like people, places, subjects, events, and expressive tags. Hashtags used to express feelings, tell jokes, or otherwise offer a personal take on whatever the person was tweeting about. And what she found is that about 59% of female users' hashtags were expressive, while males' hashtags were dramatically the other way. 77% were traditional. And so the conclusion, it makes a lot of sense, is why men get retweeted more than women is that people searching for things, topics on Twitter using hashtags are not going to be using expressive hashtags. They're going to be using informational, descriptional hashtags, right? So men's tweets, if that's how they're using the hashtags, are going to be found more often simply because they're using keywords that are topical, that are description that rather than expressive. So
Okay, I
interesting
need some
study.
examples. Like, who wrote that? Donald Trump? What are the examples of expressive hashtags versus
Like, okay, so here's a tweet. An example of a tweet would be, here's the quote of the tweet. The hashtag can teach us something. This hashtag, the hashtag can treat us something about gender. A male might use linguistics, gender, or maybe hashtags as their hashtags, and the female user is more likely to add something like duh as a hashtag. So it's a commentary on using hashtags as a commentary on whatever they're talking about in the tweet. And I see that a lot. I never thought about it in terms of gender. I do that myself. But you know, if you can break down a collection of tweets and figure out the data, which she apparently did, then you know it's something to be aware of, either as a tweeter yourself or if you're trying to attract a certain gender or not.
I don't like that particular.
All right, it's been duly noted.
that topic distresses me, especially given the current news of the day, which we're not going to discuss because we don't want to discuss politics. Anyway, that brings us to the end of the show. Would you like to take us out, Dave?
Sure. Thank you for watching episode number 107 of the Beyond Social Media Show. We will have a blog post with all the links of stuff that we talked about in this episode at beyondsocialmediashow.com/107. You can give us some love if you like the show. Give us a review, and you can do that by going to beyondsocialmediashow.com/love, where you can find links to our iTunes account, into our Stitcher account, and subscribe to our newsletter. We have a weekly newsletter. It's free, and it includes exclusive content that you won't get on the podcast itself. You'll only get it in the newsletter, so you need to subscribe. It's at beyondsocialmediashow.com/newsletter. You can find BL Ochman online at What's Next on Twitter. Her blog is what'snextblog.com. She is the CEO of maximum-plus.com, where you can hire her for all things Google Plus and video. I am David Erickson. You can find me at D.Erickson on Twitter. My blog is E-Strategy Blog, and I also blog at my agency's blog at creativepr.com/blog. Until next week, thank you so much for watching.
Thank you for watching, and I just want to point out that both Dave and I have our own individual newsletters as well, and I happen to think his is pretty terrific, and I hope you'll subscribe to both of those, and we'll see you next week, same time, same station. Thanks so much for watching.